And some of the most inspiring words came from Colonel Jack Jacobs. You spoke briefly, but it got me right here because I learned that you are educating the next generation. And I know those lessons are going to carry this nation forward on strong feet. One of the special ways Congressman Sherman can recognize a true hero in this country, a man who is continuing to dedicate himself to this country, is to request a flag that's been flown over the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. And Colonel Jacobs, if you can come up one more time, I do have the flag of the United States of America as flown over the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Now, Colonel, I'm sure you have plenty of flags at this point. But the congressman would point out that how do you know that that flag was actually flown over the Capitol in Washington, D.C.? You know, they sell flags at Target. But it's fortunate that I brought with me a certificate of authenticity to demonstrate that this flag was indeed flown over the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Colonel Jacobs, thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you're doing. I'm going to stay up here for just one more moment because I know we have a special visitor. I got to sit next to him at our panel earlier today. And Colonel Nelson Mellis, if you wouldn't mind coming to the stage as well. I learned of his recent testimony to the U.S. Congress, his ongoing advocacy for veterans, and he knows that the job is not done. And yet he provides an outstanding example of someone who is dedicated to our armed services and to our veterans. And as a grandson of a Jewish war veteran, it's a humbling experience to stand next to the national commander and to say thank you. Thank you because I know the meaning that was brought to my grandfather's life by being engaged with that organization, and you're helping tell the stories that we're telling today, but you're also fighting for those people who actually need and deserve benefits today as well. Stay up here because we actually have a surprise for you. We have also, we get 2 flags. Believe it or not, they fly more than 1 flag over the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And Colonel Mellis, thank you for your service. I do have a flag of the United States of America for you as well.
At this particular point in the show, we would like to have the North Valley Military Academy Band play a few songs for us. Meet the artist, Schwartz. Every once in a while, something really special happens. Every once in a while, something really unique happens. Our next guest personifies those things. David Schwartz is one of those gifted artists of our day. He has made a name for himself with a collection he started 15 years ago, the Patriotic American Icon Collection. Please welcome David Schwartz.
And the one I will be presenting today was from the grandson of Dr. Ben Salomon, the dentist, whose heroism was unbelievable. His story of protecting wounded soldiers in a tent under attack was amazing. They found him with over 90 stab and bullet wounds in his body, and he saved the lives of perhaps hundreds of wounded soldiers. And I would like to give Colonel Jacobs the honor of unveiling the paintings. We will have posters of this available soon if the company organization wants to help sponsor them. I am giving away 100 posters today to all veterans and active military, true honor of painting that sent a request to the National Jewish War Veteran Museum in Washington, D.C. And that flag also flew over the U.S. Capitol. This is a 48-star flag, and I'd like to thank you all once again. I also want to thank Commander Greg Lee for presenting with me again, and we look forward to many more of these in the future. And come see me after, and I'll be happy to sign posters. Thank you.
Please don't run away. Colonel Mellons, would you step up, please?
So here's how we do it. I'm a big mouth. I know how to run a mic. I just take over, and I don't want anyone to look stupid, bad, or put their pants down. So here's the deal. You just heard how a flag was presented to the artist, and you see what he did with it. He turned it into something fantastic, something that's going to hang in a museum, something that's going to be representative of our Medal of Honor recipients. David didn't really elaborate on it a lot. Turns out in the Jewish faith, there's 18 Medal of Honor recipients. He mentioned a painting called True Honor. It's a companion to a documentary film called True Honor. We have a documentary film that chronicles the exploits of the Medal of Honor recipients of the Jewish faith. When I had met David many years ago, we became friends. If anyone is my friend, but David is. And so what happened is so I asked David, what do you think about, commemorating some Medal of Honor things? This is a fantastic idea. So he did True Honor. That was the general, all-encompassing one. And then from there, we decided, hey, why not do an individual representation of each of these recipients? And so one was done of Tibor Rubin, who was a recipient of the Korean War. And then we have this one, the dentist, that was done on behalf of Ben Salomon. And now the next recipient of a fantastic painting like this is going to be Colonel Jack Jacobs, who is here with us. I want to call up Colonel Jack Jacobs because he does have some words of inspiration for us, and I think now's the appropriate time for him to give those. That's what you came here for. You didn't come here to listen to me blabber. Colonel Jacobs, please, sir.
I spent some time on NBC, and about 20 years or so ago, Lester Holt, who's now the anchor of NBC Nightly News, was at MSNBC, and he and I were on like half the day, because the war was getting started over in Iraq, and there was this big sand table on the ground, on the floor, and I'd point to it incorrectly most times, but nobody knew the difference, where everybody was and where they were going and all the rest of it. I grew up in New York, and my father had served in the Army in New Guinea and the Philippines. during the Second World War. He had been studying electrical engineering at the University of Minnesota and was dragooned into the Army with about 8 weeks to go before graduation. Hated getting dragged out of college, hated the Army, hated getting shot at. Nobody likes getting shot. Got out of the Army the instant that he could when the war was over. And yet when he got to be my age, all he'd talk about was how proud he was at having saved the world. And he and his generation had done exactly that. Since that time, we've had to rely on several other generations of young people who have defended our freedom, our interests abroad and at home, and who have ensured that the service and sacrifice of the people who came before them had not been wasted. Now it's our obligation to make sure that the next generation does the same. That we remember what was done in the name of the United States, in the name of our freedom, so that succeeding generations can do what they need to do in order to keep our country safe, keep our people free. That takes a lot of work. And those of you, I'm preaching to the converted because everybody here is either served or is heavily involved with people who've served. It's not easy to do that. My first assignment was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I went airborne because it paid you $110 a month. A new lieutenant made $222.10 a month. I did something really ignorant. I got married when I was 18 years old, so by the time I was commissioned, I had 2 kids. And went airborne because it was a 50% increase in salary. And that wasn't even a lot of money back in those days. Marriage is not recommended. I told my kids not to get married. It's a very bad idea. But if they are going to get married, they should keep their eye peeled for the ideal spouse. The ideal spouse has 2 and only 2 salient characteristics: incredibly rich and incurably ill. I think it didn't work for me, and my kids didn't listen to it either. They're gloriously happy. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I realized one thing right away that we all have to remember. No, how can it be taller than I am?
That would be the crowning end.
Hold on, because then I have to move over. That's quite all right. I realized right away, and you did too, the instant you put on the uniform, that young people get authority and responsibility at a very early age. I spent a lot of time talking to people who are CEOs, people who own businesses, and they all say the same thing: we want to hire veterans. And I ask them, why do you want to hire veterans? And most of them, if they're not enlightened, say, well, they've served and therefore we owe it to them, as if it's charity. And I tell them, you have no idea what you're talking about. These are the best people you can find anywhere. Indeed, most of them have had authority and responsibility at 19, more than you've got right now. And I think we're turning the tide on that. We're convincing a lot of people that hiring veterans is vitally important for their own good, not for the veterans' good. The veterans know what they're doing. They've had lots of authority and responsibility. About the medal. When I was decorated, there were about 375 living recipients. Today, there are 65 of us. We're really a waning asset. The first dinner I attended, the guy who sat next to me was Eddie Rickenbacker, the age of the First World War. And we were talking last night about this. One of the guys there at the dinner was a fellow named Bill Seach, who conducted a bayonet charge on the Citadel at Beijing in 1900 during the Boxing Rebellion. He was still alive. And now there are very few of us left, which is why we feel very, very strongly about supporting the kinds of things you're all doing. And we scatter around the country, those of us who can still wander around and get on a plane and so on, to do exactly what I'm doing, what you're all doing now. It's interesting about the medal because it is arbitrary in many respects. And those of us who've been decorated realize that there are lots of people who should be wearing the medal but are not. Somebody once asked Bob Kerrey, how do you wind up getting the Medal of Honor? Bob Kerrey was a governor in Nebraska and was a senator from Nebraska, not to be confused with John Kerry, completely different person altogether. I asked Kerry one time, he's from Nebraska, I said, how'd you wind up in the Navy? He said, well, I had a low draft number. I didn't want to go in the Army, go to Vietnam, got my leg blown off. So instead I joined the Navy, went to Vietnam, and got my leg blown off. It's a real irony. Navy SEAL, and received his Medal of Honor as a Navy SEAL. Somebody once asked him in an interview, what does it take to get the Medal of Honor? And he said, well, you got to do something. People have to see it. They have to be able to write, and they can't hate you. Those are the 4 requirements. You think about all the people who served and have served valiantly and nobody saw it. Or people saw it and they themselves were killed. There was nobody left to witness. Or what often happened, as we know in the case of a lot of people recently who've been decorated retrospectively, the paperwork was accidentally or on purpose lost, destroyed. Ted Rubin was recommended for the Medal of Honor 4 separate times for 4 separate actions. And his first sergeant said, no bleeping Jew will ever get any award in my company. And 50 years later, a couple of the guys whose lives he had saved got together and reinstituted the paperwork, started all over again. Ted's ceremony was the only one other than my own that I attended. 55 years after he had earned the award. So think about all the people who performed valiantly and were never recognized. That's why recipients say that this medal is not ours. We just hold it in trust. A recipient now gone named Nikki Bacon said, I wear this medal not for me, but for all those who can't. When we think about the young people who are in service today, we have to make sure that we don't forget how hard they're working to protect all of us. During the Second World War, there were 19 million people in uniform. Today, we have outsourced the defense of the Republic to a very small number of young men and women who are willing to do it. And we should never, ever forget that we're able to enjoy freedom. Our families are able to enjoy freedom because of those young kids who are out there right now. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing now. But more than that, I want to thank you for everything you're going to. God bless.
We will do something that maybe has never been done before. We're going to have Medal of Honor recipient Jack Jacobs administer the oath of enlistment to our newest Army recruit. Josue, did he run out on us? Oh, there he is. Thought you changed your mind.
I used to know this by heart, but I haven't enlisted anybody in 5 years. Turn this way. Raise your right hand. All right. And repeat after me. All right. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Congratulations.
coming. God be with you and make every day some kind of holiday. The band is going to play.